welcome to Crowning Connections with Rob Clemons and Monarch Roofing. Today, I'm excited. We're going to talk a little bit about training and building your company. We all know in the United States of America that one of the big hallmarks of a good company is, do you have a good culture? And do you have good employees that work for you, which is a part of that good culture? So we're actually excited today. We have Brandyn. Brandyn, you're here with Clear. What's your company's name again?
Clear Message Coaching and Consulting. Yep.
Here's what got me. You have this great logo here. It just says Clear on it. So I totally focused in on that, but I love that. Tell me a little bit about your company and how you help businesses.
Well, it's amazing. Every business starts for the exact same reason. And it's because we learned a skill or developed a product or have something that can help somebody else live better. So we go out to do that. The problem is there are 6 critical areas of business and we never learn the other 5. We learned that skill. We learned that we developed that product, whatever it is. And we never actually learn the rest of how business makes our life better as well as our customers' life better. And the biggest hindrance to that is having a clear message, knowing how to talk about your product, your service, your business, so that you attract the right resources in all 6 critical areas. And it's from attracting the right people to any position. It's attracting the right resources if you're looking to expand, the investors, if you're looking for partnerships with people, or connecting with those customers by knowing how to talk about your business so that customers are actually excited. They raise their hand, they self-identify and say, you are the person that I've been looking for, and they actually walk towards you so you never chase a sale again. When you have a clear message, when you know how to talk about your product, all of the resources for all 6 areas start working together and you transform your business into a profit-generating machine. So you get to help more customers. And that's what we started to do, is to help people live better.
Okay, well, that makes perfect sense. So tell me, I feel like a lot of companies, you get into business and it's like, why did I get into business? And then they struggle. I want to make money, right? But I feel like that you're tapping into something here that's a really important one for people to listen to. How do you find your clear message? Because I think this is something that's probably really underrated, right?
Oh, absolutely. And there's a system and a process to figure out. We know everything there is to know about our business in the roofing world. I'm going to butcher it, but you probably know the composition of architectural shingles versus asphalt shingles versus whatever else, and you know everything about that. And so you start learning about that in any other business. I love to use Neil deGrasse Tyson as an example because he knows everything about the night sky.
Shout out to quantum physics.
Exactly.
Yeah. I've read it. Yeah.
So he knows everything about the night sky, and he knows the difference between a planet and a dwarf planet, and pisses people off when he mentions the difference between the two, because Pluto got bumped for a while.
Poor Pluto. It's not right what they did to Pluto, man.
Right. But when you can actually connect the knowledge that you have and inspire people on their level, they suddenly, because I hate to break this to you, your customers, even if their roof is leaking, they don't care about the difference between an architectural shingle and an asphalt shingle or whatever else. They care about their most important investment, whether it's their house or their family or those possessions or the aesthetic. They may want to look a certain way, but when you can position your product and service as the resolution to the way that they're feeling, then they become interested in your specifics of that product or service, but they care about what's important to them. So transitioning, just taking the exact same information and twisting it just a little bit. There was a long-running car commercial series by Chevrolet. Great car company. I'm going to say something that's going to make you think that I don't like them, but I do. They're fantastic. But they ran these ads over and over and over again, and it was about, we won this award. We won these J.D. Power awards. We won these awards. Look at us, look at us, look at us. But nobody really cares about the awards that you won when I'm spending the money. What matters is you need to make sure that you get to work on time. That's why we strive to make our cars the most reliable on the planet. So much so that they even gave us an award for it, so that you never worry about running late for work.
Okay, so you're tapping into something that I think is really, really important. And I want to stop there. I want to really emphasize and underscore what you're saying here. So let's use Tide as another example. And I think you might have heard of this, but Tide years ago came up with a concept, and everybody was talking about how we're going to get your clothes cleaner. Right? And they were like, oh, we got all these chemicals and all these things and these special ways of making your clothes cleaner. And people would, you don't know what they're talking about anyway. In fact, I want to go back to that. I want to talk about sales 101. But a lot of people don't care about the details. And then Tide came up with this genius concept. And what it was is, we make your clothes smell fresh. And then all of a sudden people are like, all of a sudden I want to buy that Tide. I want to buy that product that makes my clothes smell spring fresh, whatever that means. But it was something that people could get behind, because the message was very complicated before. We're just going to make your clothes cleaner. But what did it do for the customer, right? Is that kind of what you're saying?
Absolutely. When you land on so every company solves a problem. First of all, you've got to know what problem you solve. But then most companies sell based on the features of their product. And again, using a car lot, you walk up to the car, and what's it got? It's got this sticker, and it says cruise control and heated seats and whatever the list, and everyone knows the price. But none of that translate into how customers buy. We buy based on emotions or the internal problem, how it makes us feel. So thinking back into the 70s, and I remember this because my grandfather bought his first brand new car with cruise control and leather seats. So those two things I've used forever. Yeah. Prior to that, I don't need cruise control. I've got a foot. It works just fine. I don't need leather seats. Any seat is just fine. I'm not going to pay extra for that. Automatic transmissions would be another one. Until you actually say, imagine driving through Hazard, Kentucky, without worrying about a speeding ticket, because they were famous for speed traps.
Sure.
So suddenly that results into something I want. I don't want to worry. Imagine driving across country and not being tired and exhausted because you have air conditioning now. Instead of saying air conditioning cools the air conditioning gets you to your destination so that you are ready to have a great experience, not be worn out and need a nap because you're soaked in your own sweat.
Yeah, I didn't know. Well, I like that. And one thing I do want to talk about. So at Monarch Roofing, for example, we have training with our sales guys. And one of the biggest things that happens is, and we send them through weeks of training to learn how to sell a roof. And most sales guys, probably the biggest, I think, error they make is that they spend so much time learning about the details of the product, granules on the shingles and how it's thicker and all these things. And then they get out and they want to regurgitate this to the customers. Oh my gosh, I want to show you how much I know. And they lose that little thing that you're talking about. It's like you've lost the connection of why the customer has you there. So in this way, I spend a lot more time trying to almost deprogram that. In fact, I've heard before that a lot of these customers, 2 months in, 3 months in, they might not even remember what brand of shingles they have, but they do know it looks good, and they do know they're not leaking. So those are good things, right?
And then they know that you're not going to have to worry about this for 20 years. You're not going to worry about this for 50 years. And again, with technology, those might be old numbers, but I can remember, seeing 20-year shingles or 30-year shingles. Or,
yeah, it's like a big deal, right?
Yeah. So it's like, you replace this roof, and unless a catastrophe hits, you never have to worry about this again. Again, I know a little bit about you guys because I literally see you guys, I'm across the street.
Throw a baseball and hit our building, right?
But I know you guys have a maintenance program, so you can actually reduce that level of worry even more. Let us come out once a year to make sure that nothing unforeseen has happened, that squirrels haven't made a nest, that something hasn't made an impact. Any of these things, and all that the customer does is just wants to not have to worry about those things. And again, they don't care about the shingles; they care about the level of stress, the level of worry, or the protection of their most important assets, whether it's the house itself, whether it's their family, whether it's their stuff. Nobody wants to look up and see a water spot, and because that is a dread. And then, of course, they call everybody they can think of. But if they're on your maintenance plan, well, he was just out last month. It's not a roof thing. Maybe it's an HVAC thing, whatever it is. I make stuff up a lot. So
Oh yeah.
if my details are off, just it's the concept.
It's never the HVAC. I'm going to tell. No, I mean, as a roofing guy, I can tell you, it is a lot of times the HVAC when you see a leak. Let me tell you something, and I've got 3 questions that I like every salesman to know coming out of an appointment. And a lot of times I have to explain this to the guys. I'm saying you don't ask these 3 questions, but you have to know the answer to these 3 questions, however you get it out. And I'm not going to tell you the third one because that would just be giving you all my secrets. But I will tell you the first 2. And the first one is, it's the most basic question: why am I here today? And I tell you what, it gets missed so often, Brandon. I mean, it's one of those things where, hey, I need a new roof. Okay, we'll be out tomorrow. We're sending out our guy, and he gets out there and he's like, yep, you need a new roof. And he goes through. First question: why do you need a new roof? Customer says, well, I just don't like the way it looks. So why am I going to spend all my time talking about hurricanes and everything? You got to understand what the pains are, right? And then the second thing I like to know is, how long have you been thinking about doing this for? And I feel like that gives me a mindset of the customer, because I know what kind of customer I'm dealing with. Is this so urgent to you that you just found out yesterday and now you're calling me today? Is this something you learned about 5 years ago? So you know your audience better. Is this sort of like along the lines of what you would recommend yourself? Or
Oh, absolutely. And let me give you some secrets from the carpet sales king of Toronto, Canada. You may have seen him and heard of him because he obviously made a great name for himself. His name is Howie Mandel.
Oh, yeah. Heard of him, yeah.
So, of course, we don't know him as the carpet sales king of Canada at this point. But early in his career, he actually would have a series of questions as people out of high school. He worked in a carpet sales stock. So people would come in and he would say, oh, what brings you in today? How can I help you? And well, we're looking at some new floor coverings. And he's like, oh, well, is it for indoor or outdoor? And every time he asked a question and they answered in these 2 categories, he would take a step one way or the other. And then finally, he's like, oh, so you're looking for an indoor carpet for the high traffic hallway that is in the green-brown shade, and you like a little bit longer nap and then a heavier pad. Would you like this one or this one? Because based on their answers, he took a step exactly to the product that they described.
Smart.
And within months, he was outselling people who had been in the industry for years as a kid. So, and then more details that I learned later is the reason he came up with that series or that method. As a kid, he only liked to read the Choose Your Own Adventure books.
That's funny. Yeah, so where you go one way or the other based on... No, it's really cool. And the most interesting part of that is he's just asking questions. And that's, it's like Salesman 101. Ask some questions. It's like dating. If you ever go on a date and you're talking about yourself the whole time, I don't know, that's usually not a great method for success here.
I don't know. I've been married 25 years, so it's been a
yeah.
really long time since I've had to do that. But yes, I agree. It's
Hey,
funny.
Brandon, what makes a successful marriage? No, I'm just kidding. We're not going there today. All right. Hey,
If somebody knows the answer to that, please call me.
right. Your wife's on the phone. We're going to actually put her. No. Let me ask you a different question. So, give me a company that we would recognize that has a clear message, and what is that message? I mean, you must have an example for us.
There are lots of them. And again, there are only 7 messages that you need to create to build any brand. The one I use the most often is one that everybody has to have, but they also know. So in 15 minutes or less, what could you do?
15 minutes or less, what could you do?
Yeah. In 15 minutes or less, you can save 15% or more on your car insurance.
We're doing that. Okay, gotcha. Yes,
So,
yes.
Every time we hear that, we know what that is. Why do we know that? Because
Just
they've told us.
Yeah, absolutely. And repetition.
If you remember a couple of years ago, or and may not even been 2 years at this point, they tried to change that because some of their competition had actually latched on and said, well, 15 minutes is an eternity. We can get you set up in 90 seconds. Mm-hmm. So they were going to go to, I think it's serving insurance for over 75 years or something. Almost as soon as they tried it, they stopped it because they realized this was off of their message. Mm-hmm. So that's just one example. But so many companies get close to it. Touch points are a huge thing. We get over 5,000 messages into our eyes every day. Mm-hmm. The human brain cannot process that information. The only way for us to survive is to tune out what doesn't help us survive or thrive. So in order to actually connect, you have to tell people exactly what you do, why they need it or how it's going to make their life better, and what they need to do to get it. If you can't answer those 3 questions in any communication, they're not going to stop and listen. And again, I started earlier and talked about the problems. The way to get people to start listening is to start with a problem. Again, it's the same function of the human brain. To survive and thrive, we store information as answers or solutions to problems. Even if I don't have that problem, I will remember the solution to it in case I come across it.
Interesting. So what would you recommend to businesses that are, trying to find out, like trying to basically uncover this little mystery here?
Well, I would love to help them. It's not a hard process. But first of all, know the problem that you solve. Be known for the problem that you solve. If you cannot define the number one problem that you solve, take time and understand and articulate that problem. Position your product or service as the solution to that. Don't get lost in the weeds. Just say, we do the magic. So problem, solution, and life after. If you do those 3 things, PSA, I call it the PSA formula. It's not a public service announcement. It's problem, solution, life after. Know the problem you solve. Offer your product or service as the solution, and describe what life is going to be like when your customer no longer has to deal with it. What is life after they've used your service and they no longer have to experience or suffer from that? When you do those 3 things in that order, problem, solution, life after, you almost can't not grow and connect with people.
Yeah, it's a great tip, and I think that's something that's really important. So now you have to get this message to your employees. How do you train your employees to think like this? What's because this is a mindset, right? And you bring in an employee on day 1 and they're thinking, oh, okay, cool, I sell cars or whatever it is. But how do you get this message to your employees?
It's really simple. It's the same way we do it to external customers, because an employee is just an internal customer. We tell them. We think we put it on the front page of your employee handbook. That should be enough, right? No.
Yeah.
That's collecting dust on the bookshelf right beside, a dozen other books that we've never read. Every day when we have a strong mission statement, and the mission statement and if you've got a mission statement that you're happy with, that's great. Create a purpose statement, but you can put those same elements into your mission or your purpose and not only are you going to remind your existing employees, but you're going to attract those ideal candidates to those jobs because they understand what you're doing, how you're making people's lives better, the timeline that it has to be accomplished on, and why it's really, really important, because your customers, your potential customers, your future customers should not have to continue dealing with that problem because you have a solution. Jeff Walker said something in 2015 that changed my life. I've never sold anything since. He said, if you have the solution to somebody's problem, it is your sacred duty to tell them you can help. If they choose not to accept your help, that's on them, but it is your sacred duty to tell them you can help.
Sacred duty to tell them you can help. I like that. Let's talk a little bit about this then. What inspires you? I mean, have you got a certain role model in life or somebody that you looked up to that's kind of helped you to really develop into who you are now?
I kind of wanted to get out of a situation that I saw repeated in my family over and over again. So I just tried to learn as much as I could so that I didn't repeat the mistakes of the past. That's kind of the anti role model. I knew where I didn't want to go, and I wanted to research how people actually excelled, how people made I did not do great in school. I did not learn the same way other people did. So this is all self-taught. I did go to college. I actually studied physics at Virginia Tech for 3 years. But I didn't learn the same way. And when I got into the business world and saw people working way too hard and struggling way too much, and now these days people who are tied to their phones worried about is there going to be enough revenue coming in, because every bit. I'm getting way off your question just because of the mistakes that I see people make. But yeah, so it's just finding the success stories and finding the systems that got them to that success is what motivates me. And then to turn around and help people to stop making those mistakes. Every business runs on lag measures. What was last week's sales? What was last month's sales? What was last quarter's sales? What was this week's sales compared to last year? Mm-hmm. There is not a thing in the world that we can do about last week's sales. If we don't have lead measures, do we know how many people are coming into our sales funnel? Do we know do we know what our conversion rate is based on those number of people? Do we know, when you set up lead measures, you can actually get a crystal ball. You can tell what your revenue is going to look like before it even gets here. So giving people those tools so that they're get better night's sleep, so that they're not tied to their phone, worried about answering a customer's question at 9:30 at night when they should be sleeping or spending time with their family. Giving them that resource and that availability to avoid mistakes is just hugely rewarding, and I guess that's what motivates me now.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. What other hobbies do you have?
Oh, well, I listen to podcasts nonstop.
Oh, no way. Okay, cool.
So, one of my mantras or one of my things is 446. Mm-hmm. Every morning at 4:46 a.m. I am up. I run 5 at 5 times a week. And the reason I try not to do anything on the quarter hour is to remind me that every minute counts. I start my day moving and learning. So while I'm running those 5 miles,
446.
446.
Yeah. So why not 444? Was there ever a consideration of?
I don't know.
Hey, there's a certain randomness to it. I appreciate. No, that's awesome. Now you say you run five for 5.
Yeah.
You mean
5 miles at 5 a.m.
Wow, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
What's the key to being keeping your body healthy like that? Because obviously, running 5 miles a day is legit, right? That's a lot of wear and tear on the joints. I mean, you ever just have to ice the knees or anything?
Oddly enough, something every stage of life learned or teaches you something different. And in my 30s, I was very overweight. On the commercial break, I might run from the couch to the bathroom.
Right.
Yeah. But you get to a point when you look at your kids and you realize that at some point in time they're going to need advice, and if I'm dead, they're going to have to ask somebody else for it. So I want to make sure that I'm around long enough to give them advice and maybe even their kids. So made some education changes, because everything starts with education, and I realized what my input was doing as far as my output. Learned a whole lot about food, learned a whole lot about actually moving and some function with that moving. And just by changing what I ate, because I did not start with an exercise program at all, lost about 35 pounds, and suddenly it didn't hurt to move. So that was kind of like, it's
a reward for the little bit of hard work. And, I guess I'd make a parallel there with business, right? You got to start with attainable goals, and that's one of the first things. Anytime that I've been into physical fitness too for years, and anytime that somebody's telling me they're thinking about getting into a fitness routine, losing weight, putting pounds on their bench press, whatever they're doing, I always tell them start small, because it's the person who decides they're going to work out for 2 hours a day right off the jump that it's not sustainable, right? You got to kind of build up to that stuff. So good lesson for business. Don't try to become the business of the year in year one. Just get a little bit better than you were yesterday. That goes a long way, right?
Absolutely.
We got a few minutes left, Brandyn. So I wanted to ask you probably something that I think would be helpful for businesses out there. What is the most common business mistake that you see people making? And obviously you might say not having a clear message. So I get that. But is there any one thing that you see that most commonly that businesses don't do properly?
There are so many of them, but again, the clear message piece, knowing how to talk about your product or service so that it connects is one of them. And again, part of that is getting in the weeds. Asking a car mechanic, and he's going to tell you about valve trains and, belts and, all the intricate workings. And I just need to know when I turn the key, is it going to start every day? So being able to relate to the customer as the customer needs it. And the way that I frame this, and it's the system that I teach, is positioning the customer as the hero. And the biggest way that we can shift that is by transforming the I, me, and we statements that we use into how does it affect you and your life and your quality of life based on the customer. So taking the exact same information from their point of view, it lets them say, oh, you're talking about me. And again, they raise their hand and they walk towards you. And it works in every business, every aspect of business. And okay, let me flip side that. That's the big one. The other one is not having a dashboard that you can look at, because it doesn't matter how well your business runs. If you run out of cash, you're going to fail. Not having a easy way to see what your revenue stream is, what your current capital is, and what it's going to look like. That right there is the most critical. Cash is king. They've said it for years. Yeah. It is. But the great way to make sure that you have a steady cash flow is knowing how to attract it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, just summarizing that, I would say that having a roadmap to where you're going, making sure you got the budget proper to do it, tracking your leads and how effective you are with them, all measures of success. That makes perfect sense. Well, Brandyn, I'll give you 30 seconds. Give me an elevator pitch on your company and just show us how it's done.
Every business starts with a great idea. The problem is business leaders never learn the 6 critical areas of business, much less how they're supposed to work together in order to transform it into a profit-generating machine. When you get frameworks, repeatable, proven frameworks in all 6 areas, you never worry about work. You grow your business.
Beautiful. Was that 30 seconds, Danielle?
Take.
Perfect. Hey, Brandyn, it's been a lot of fun. Appreciate you being on with us today.
Thanks so much. My pleasure.
All right, sounds good. This has been Rob Clemons with Crowning Connections. We'll see you next time.